Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Geek podcast. We are your hosts, Joel and Sebastian, and today we tackle the topic of towing with an electric vehicle. As more electric trucks are released, we see more questions and comments about towing with your electric truck, specifically in regards to efficiency and charging. Today, we welcome Ford Lightning owner and former podcast guest Joe Sholtes back to the podcast. Joe is going to share his experience towing with his Lightning and hopefully clear up some misconceptions. So without further ado, let's welcome Joe back to the EV Geek podcast. All right, welcome back to the podcast today, Joe. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Doing all right. So if Joe looks familiar to you, he was on a previous episode with two other Lightning owners, Jason and Benjamin, where we talked about their Ford F-150 Lightning ownership experience. And during that interview, we found out that Joe does a lot of towing.
I do.
With his electric truck, with his electric F-150. And so we thought we'd have him back on and kind of talk to him about it because there's a lot of misconceptions around towing in EVs and how that actually works and can you do it. You know, I've been a truck owner. I've never towed. I had a gas truck, never towed with it. The most I ever did with it was probably put a couple bags of sand in the back and a couple 2x4s, and that was it. But following you on Facebook, you tow on a regular basis. So before we get started, before we get into this, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
So I live up in Albany, New York. I got my F-150 Lightning in 2022. About a month, 2 months later, my wife got sick of tent camping and wanted to do a camper. And I'm 6'8", so we needed the biggest camper I could possibly tow to get the tallest shower. That was the selling point for me. So we went all the way, and we got a 36-foot Salem 29 Bub is the model number, and it sleeps 9 people, and it's ridiculous. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. That's how my wife camps. So let's go camp. She's like, okay, I need a cabin. I need cable. I need heat and air. I'm like, that's not camping. So.
I started off, I actually had a rooftop tent on the back of the truck on the Lightning, and it was great. I think I took it on one trip with the Lightning and a couple more trips before that on my gas F-150. I loved it. It was just me and my son at the time, and my wife joined me once, and she was like, "Yeah, no, we're getting a camper." Yeah. So I was actually towing a Sea-Doo jet ski with the Lightning at the time, and that went, and in came the camper. So
that kind of leads into our first question. So, what type of loads do you typically tow? You mentioned your camper. Do you have trailer, RV, boats? And how far do you usually have to tow these when you're towing?
So I originally started with the Sea-Doo. I want to say it was like 4,000, 5,000 pounds tops with the trailer. Mm-hmm. Wasn't really that much of a weight for the truck at all. And I barely noticed any sort of range loss, any sort of, it's a small trailer. So when you're backing up, it's hard to do. But other than that, no sway, no nothing like that. So It was like nothing was back there with the Sea-Doo. When I moved up to the camper, I got the weight distribution hitch to bring the Lightning up to the 10,000 pound towing capacity that it has. The camper is 9710, fully loaded.
Cutting it close.
Very close. And the hitch weight is 910 pounds. So I studied every bit of calculations before I picked this thing up. I'm like, I have to make sure I don't screw my brand new truck up. Yep. And it works. It hauls perfectly fine. Again, you can barely notice it's behind you. But it's a wind sail. It's 36 feet. So anytime the wind blows, you're feeling this way. But other than that, it tows like a champ.
Cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, it sounds to me like the truck performs just as well with it behind it as it does with it not behind it.
You can't even tell the power difference when you hit the gas. Like, I've had a couple close calls where I'm getting onto an on-ramp and stuff like that, and I have to move quickly, and it's got no problem pulling it right away. So
let's talk about the first thing everyone brings up when we mention towing with an electric pickup truck. What's the range reduction like?
All right, so going into it, I knew that the range was going to suck. You have to prepare yourself mentally that, like, this isn't what these were made for yet. We're not there. This is the first electric pickup truck. It's not there for towing
So what's your car? So what is your stated range on your Ford F-150?
320 miles. I have the extended range battery.
Okay.
And that was the only reason I said yes to the camper, was I had the extended range, so I had the extra range as it was. So I was like, all right, it shouldn't be too bad. I get maybe 120 on perfect conditions, and that's maybe. And I'm not going the speed limit. I'm going 5 under the speed limit. And it's not great. I knew it wasn't going to be great, though. The only saving grace I will say is that the truck plans the chargers for you when the camper is attached. It knows it's attached.
Mm-hmm.
So it knows what range loss you're getting. It knows where it's got to go. So all I have to do is put it in the navigation built into the truck, and it literally just finds all the chargers for me. I have no issue at all. A little bit of pre-planning just to make sure all those charging stations are okay to get a 36-foot camper in. But other than that, that's the only saving grace to the lack of range.
So next question, charging. So yeah. I know a lot of I pulled one of your pictures that we'll have on the thumbnail of you charging, and you're taking up basically half the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yep. So do you run into times where you have to unhitch, or how do you manage it carrying a camper that big?
So I'm in the Northeast. We haven't seen many pull-through charging stations installed anywhere up here yet. I can't say anywhere close. So it's usually a disconnect. That one picture that I do have there, I actually pulled into that plaza. I want to say it was 6-ish on a Sunday morning. So the plaza was very empty. Other than that, right there were like employees that were parked there. And I just decided to go for it, and I was not feeling disconnecting it. I'm really good at disconnecting it quick. Yeah. I feel like a NASCAR pit crew when I disconnect it now, but just put a couple cones out on both sides, and I was able to squeeze out of there. The islands and the parking lots and stuff are very tough with a 36-foot camper, so I usually park it way far out and lock it up and come back over to the charger. So what's your personal best time on hitching that thing?
I kind of envision like a Christmas Story where the dad's, redoing the tire, taking off the lug nuts and says, "Tie me." I see that as you. You're telling your wife, "Tie me," and you run out and start unhooking it. So
my minimum time I've ever gotten it done was 18 minutes.
Really? It takes that long? Holy cow.
I gotta have the hydraulic thing come down.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
It's a big camper, Joel.
It's a big camper. Yeah. It's not a Sea-Doo. It's not a Sea-Doo.
No, that would be like 3 minutes.
That's what I was thinking. So
no, the whole hydraulic arm has to come down. I gotta disconnect the weight distribution hitch. I gotta, the sway bar has to come off, and I gotta chock the wheels and all that. So it's a feat.
Any flack at superchargers when you pull up with one of those things trying to charge?
I haven't gotten flack. I've definitely gotten like, holy crap, I can't believe you're towing that. But like, haven't gotten real much flack other than
everyone's too blown away to complain.
Yes.
Usually I'm disconnected though. If I was pulling up, like I said, that one picture, I think that might be one of the 2 times I've ever pulled up and blocked a roadway. I've never had anybody come back out. Like the charger was empty when I pulled in there. Like nobody's ever come out and gone, "Hey, you're blocking the road." I leave excess room around me to let people go by. I actually have another. We just went to Hershey, Pennsylvania last year, and we were at a Tesla charger, and I think there were like 30 chargers in the lot there, and it was just not a single car charging. So I just went right in the middle and took up gave everybody enough room to go on both sides. But it is what it is.
Good. No ugly faces. We like hearing that.
No, not yet.
Yep.
I actually had a guy. When I did park there to charge at the Tesla charger, this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, what are you parking here for?" I go, "I got to charge my truck." Well, it's a gas truck. I'm like, "Nope, sure isn't, bud."
You're like, "Oh, really? Jeez, thanks for letting me know."
Man, where you been?
Well, that's the whole thing with the Lightning, right? It just looks like an F-150. That's
exactly
arguably one of the selling points of it. So I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes we forget that not everyone lives in the EV bubble, and so
Yep.
they don't
Right.
necessarily. He might not have legitimately known there was an electric F-150.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people I've driven by to wave at them that they're driving an EV, and I get nothing back, and I go, I forget people just think these are cars sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, they're hard to tell unless you see that light bar in the front. I mean, if you're riding beside one or behind one, or it's really hard to notice the difference. It is.
I have to drive one for almost 3 years. I can spot one just from one taillight.
Yep. The tail lights in the front. That's what's giving away. So yeah.
So you've touched on this a little bit already, but you've mentioned that you had a gas F-150 before.
Yeah.
For towing, like, what are some of the biggest differences you can tell between towing with a gas truck and towing with your EV?
Well, I can only speak. My gas truck, I only towed a jet ski with. I never had a camper with the gas truck before that. So this was my first experience towing with anything massive, and I went right with electric right out the gate. So I really didn't have much to compare it to. So the sway, the pickup, all that stuff, like, to me, that's all normal, and it's probably different for somebody else that may have come from an ice. For the jet ski, when I switched over, I mean, it was just the way the truck drives. You're flooring a 2.7 liter ice F-150. It takes a few minutes to go, whereas I can launch in the Lightning. So,
yeah.
So, drive wise, torque, acceleration. So, kind of elaborate on that a little bit more. Like I'm sure you've towed stuff with regular trucks.
Yeah.
As compared to an EV truck. How does that work? So, how does that feel?
I mean, the instant torque, the almost unlimited torque really is what it feels like. I mean, I have almost 10,000 pounds behind me, and it acts like there's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
If I need to move, I can move. I don't want to,
yeah,
with that massive load, but if I have to, I can. And it's really, I mean, you're definitely going to see your range go, down quicker, but if it's an emergency of some sort where you have to move quick, it's fantastic to have. It almost feels safer to have that instant torque when you need it.
Gotcha. Sebastian, you're up.
Sure, I sure am. My bad.
It's late, folks.
So, have you? I kind of am assuming the answer on this, but have you had any noticed of any issues towing with your electric truck other than just range loss?
Yeah, I mean, so that trip to Hershey last year on our way back, Albany to Hershey's usually, I want to say it's 4 hours without a trailer. When I plotted it out, it was looking like, I want to say it was 6 or 7, ended up being 9 on the way back because the heat, it was 96, 98 degrees, I think, on the way home. The heat, the truck was able to keep itself cool. I don't have the max towing package on my truck, so I don't have that extra cooling loop, but the truck was able to keep itself cool the entire time. It never wavered out of that safe range, but my range wasn't great. The cooling loop's definitely working harder to keep it cool. We have the AC running inside as well. So, we were definitely, I was looking at 80 miles tops on that trip back. So It was a 9.5 hour trip back, to the point where my wife was in her car traveling with us because we needed 2 cars for that. We ended up, the Lightning Club did a event at the Carlisle Ford show. So she took her car too, so she had the kids and she could go do something with them. So anyway, on the way home, she actually kidnapped the kids out of my truck and went home and continued on. I was like 2.5 hours later behind her. So, it was rough. It wasn't planned to be that long, and it was, by stop number, I don't even remember. I was just like, I'm so done disconnecting this trailer.
Basically, you're stopping every hour almost. Is what it
was.
sounds like.
Yeah, it was bad.
And then disconnecting and all that. Yeah, that does sound like a beast. So now that we have, we got, Rivian and Ford kind of, were the first ones to blaze out there with the truck. We start seeing Silverado. We're seeing Sierra. We see Scout bringing in a truck in, the Ram Rev. So what improvements or features would you like to see in future EVs for specific towing purposes?
I mean, everyone cries about range just without towing. The size of this thing is the only exception to why I would say more range. I think 320 miles on my truck is perfectly fine to road trip. I've taken it without a camper out to Chicago. I thought it was great. if you're doing this specifically for hauling, you're definitely going to need extra range. You know, that the Silverado looks great with the amount that the max battery that they have on that, but it also costs a ton to charge up at a fast charger. So it's, you're definitely in a give and take kind of situation there. So, I mean, I've also seen the campers that have the EV. What is going on? Are those bubbles? I'm sorry. I don't know what I did.
No, it's Sebastian. He's found some cool little tricks that.
No,
it wasn't you.
I think it's my Mac. I think it has gesture controls, and I don't know.
Okay, because it did it on Ben's video too. The bubbles popped up on Ben's video too. I thought Sebastian was doing something so good. Okay, we're not losing our mind. Okay, Sebastian's not playing tricks. So, if those of you who are watching or on audio, a little thumbs up like emoji popped up on the screen in front of Joe. So,
all right.
Don't worry, you're good. It probably won't even show up on the final one, so you're good.
I forget where I was now. That totally sidetracked me.
You're talking about the expense of a larger EV truck and having to fill that up.
Yeah, so I mean, you're definitely in the give and take. The campers that have, I forget what the name of the company is. The campers that have electric motors in the campers themselves. I think they're
light ship.
Light ship, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, they're looking at like $100 and some odd $1,000. Way out of my price range for a camper.
Might as well just buy Sierra or Denali. Yeah. So
even so, though, I would still want that extra boost. Like that, to me, that would solve a lot of the range problems that I have with this. Is if this was able to, you know, maybe I could do an aftermarket electric motor onto it, so you know I could charge that while I'm driving to it at the same time. You know, it would help.
Gotcha. So last question before we let you go today. I know it's late where you are, so kind of a two-parter. So first question is, what advice would you give someone considering an EV truck for towing for the first time? So first time, I'm going to buy an EV truck, I'm towing. What would you tell them?
Where are you towing to? You got to look at your use case. That's your first thing. Where are you towing to? How often are you towing? And set your mind to have the expectation to get maybe 100 miles out of it, so that when you do only get 100 miles or less, you're not totally disappointed. I want to get rid of this truck. Screw it. You got to do the research. You got to look at your use case and go, this is exactly what I'm going to do, and this will work. It'll be a little tough, but I can make it work. You know what I mean?
Yep. Another question I just thought of. When you bought this car, I'm assuming you got it from a dealer, correct?
Yes. Well, I was wave 2, so I pre-ordered it. I did most of it online.
Okay.
Texted my dealer what I wanted, and he put the order in.
So there was no going there talking about it. I was wondering if they mentioned something to you about, hey man, when you tow with this thing, you're going to get decreased ranged, or you didn't have that interaction with them. So
I say this all the time on interviews and stuff. My 3-year-old was teaching the salesman how to open the truck, how to use the buttons. Like
we've done that too. So
it was just so early that no one knew anything about the trucks yet. To this day, my salesman will text me, "Hey, what's this do? What's this mean on the truck?"
Yeah.
You know, they're still learning. So there was no way they would have any information on the towing right out the gate.
Gotcha. And last question: if you could do it all over again, because you tow, would you buy an EV or would you buy something else?
Again, this was my first experience with a heavy load, and I'm perfectly content with it. You know, we don't travel much further than the Northeast with the camper. It's just if we were to, I would probably rent a gas truck.
Yep.
But I mean, for what our use case, you know, we got younger kids, so their patience of long road trips really isn't there either. So
we have those too. Yep.
It still fits.
Yep.
However, my 5-year-old just told me the other night he wants to trade it in for a jet ski again. So we may be going back. I'm not.
Maybe going back to the jet ski. So
we're gonna see if it's just a quick dream.
There's more camping weather in Albany than there is jet ski weather in Albany. So would you say?
I don't know. I disagree. I don't know because. I don't know.
That's true, because once it starts snowing, you're probably not camping at all.
No, definitely not. No,
once that snow hits the ground, it stays for a while too.
Yeah, October it got parked. I haven't been out since. So,
ooh.
See, our issue in Arkansas is we have maybe 4 to 5 weeks a year where the weather is tolerable.
Yep.
And then it's either just too cold or wet to want to do anything, or it's 100 and something degrees outside, and you also don't want to do anything.
100 degrees is not jet ski weather either.
You get like 2 or 3 weeks in March and April, and then 2 or 3 weeks in like October, and that's spring and fall, and that's it. Everything else is either 100 or 30.
No.
That's the range.
Our
So, yeah.
season's usually maybe late April, early May, all the way till probably the first week of October, and it's pretty decent. So
Awesome. All right, Joe, thank you for joining us today for a great discussion about your towing experience. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
no, it's always a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you guys calling me back.
Gotcha. And you can catch our other episode with Joe and Jace and Ben, where they share their Ford Lightning ownership experience. We'll put a link in the description for you for that. As always, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tap that notification icon so you can be alerted when new content drops. Thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you again on another episode of the EV Geek Podcast. So long, everyone.